Welcome to our house, the House of Fi. At the House of Fi, we are all about achieving financial independence for families. Wherever you are in your financial independence journey, we want our house to be a place where you can learn and get inspired. If you are a parent on the journey to Fi, then come on in. We're glad that you're here. Here are your hosts, Wendy and Timika.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I'm Wendy, and here with me is my fabulous co-host, Timika. How are you doing today, Timika?
I'm doing great, everyone.
Awesome. Okay, well, we are so excited to bring to you today Ericka Young of Tailor-Made Budgets. Ericka has been helping hundreds of clients over 13 years get their finances in order. She specializes in budgeting, debt reduction, and savings forecasts. Ericka uses this knowledge to help her clients achieve their goals faster and with less stress. She also blogs at tailormadebudgets.com and has published a very well-received book, Naked and Unashamed, 10 Money Conversations Every Couple Should Have. We're so excited to talk to Ericka today and see what gems she has in store for you guys. Ericka, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's just awesome to be here and reconnect with you.
You are so welcome. I'm so excited too. And as you just mentioned, we know each other. I was a client of Ericka's, gosh, I don't even know how long ago it was now, but it was before you moved away from Arizona.
Yes. Yep.
And I will say that at the time that we met you, you were such a help to our family. And to this day, I still use your budget.
Woohoo! That's awesome. I love it.
It was, it was just so great to just, have that accountability and get that structure. And it really put Curtis and it was really the initial stages of this very long path to finding the financial independence community. So we're very grateful for you.
Oh, fantastic. It was my pleasure. I love doing this work, and I'm glad that it sticks. Like, I always want it to be where people create lifelong habits and not just the habits that happen while they're working with me. So it's good to know that it did stick.
It did. Well, so, this is a podcast about financial independence. And so I'm just curious. I know that you and your husband had your own financial independence beginning. And so why don't you first kind of tell us how your journey started? What was the catalyst for you and your husband kind of turning things around?
Well, so that's a really good question. First of all, we started off just like everybody else trying to pursue the quote unquote American dream. You get married, have a couple kids, buy this house, have a couple cars, and, get a good job. And on that journey, the job, before that, we had student loans because we needed a degree, and to get the cars, we had notes on that. And with kids came sometimes time without pay. And so we had credit cards, we had student loans, we had car notes, and it was actually expensive to pursue this American dream. And no one told us that. All we were told was get a good job and it'll all work out. And no one ever really explained how to make the money work or how to make good financial decisions along the way so you weren't in debt. And so we started off our relationship with like $60,000 in debt. And by the time we had our second kid, the debt that we needed to pay off was over $90,000. And that's pretty normal. Like, it's pretty darn normal for people to have that kind of money. And that's the honest truth. Like, a lot of people nowadays, they'll have that in student loans. And so the crap hit the fan for us when our car broke down and we had a new baby and we did not have $1,000 to fix it. Like, when I'm a professional, he's a professional, and we just plain could not get a new engine in this vehicle because we didn't have enough money. And that's pretty sad as an engineer to admit, that we needed to carpool, we needed to wait and all this stuff. And so what do you do when you don't have $1,000 for a repair, you actually go get another car note because they'll give you a car at $300 a month, right? And so that's what we did. So, and it's very normal. And not that normal is good. Normal means a lot of debt potentially for many of us. And so that was what we found ourselves in. And we just decided we didn't want to live like that anymore. And my husband found Dave Ramsey on the radio. He got me plugged in. My husband had to take my credit cards away because I was charging lunches with my coworkers as an engineer because I knew that I didn't have any cash to do it with. And so that started our journey. I got on board, but I was probably the reluctant one. And now for the last 13 years, I've been helping other people do the same thing. So it's interesting how the tables turn. But, you know, honestly, our journey started with figuring a way out of debt, literally writing everything out, because I think that debt sucks our disposable income and it causes us to not be able to win with money and to be able to save for our future. And so getting out of debt was the key, in my opinion, the very first step for anyone looking to figure out what does financial independence or financial freedom look like.
It's such a stressor. You know, you talk about, you know, how you had this car breakdown and you don't have the money to fix it. And you were able to go out and get a new car. You know, not everybody has the ability to do that. And so I can only imagine what that is like when you now have lost your transportation. You don't have the ability to purchase a new car. You don't have the ability to make the repair, but you need to get to work.
Right.
And it's just, it can be a frightening situation.
Absolutely. Yep.
So your story is so interesting because I think you might be the first person on the show whose husband was the one who took the first step and who had to convince you. Mm-hmm. So what about everything? What was the final straw that broke the camel's back? What was the thing that made him say, okay, this is enough? Did he find Dave Ramsey first? How did he find it? Can you take us back to that? Do you remember or do you know?
Well, he had a long commute to work. He was going to work 45, 50 minutes a day. And so he listened to talk radio. And so when he was on the radio, he would listen and he heard Dave Ramsey. Like, this guy makes a lot of sense. And he would say things about it, but he didn't really pretty much draw the line in the sand until he realized that I actually had credit cards I hadn't shared with him. So he'd be like, well, how are you going to lunch? And we don't have any cash for that. Like, where is that coming from? And so, yeah, I had to, fess up.
You had to have one of those, like, come to Jesus talks.
I did. And it's funny because I feel the pain of my clients when they actually have to have those reality checks with their spouse, or when they have to draw a line in the sand and decide, no, enough is enough. And I felt it. I've been there. And so that's sometimes what makes it work. What's the difference maker for my clients when they work with me is because I've been there. I can literally say, I felt that pain. Sure, it was years ago, but I still know what it feels like. And there are times when there's things I don't want to share with my husband, but I have to be honest and open, and I have to, the other day I just had to tell him, I was like, yeah, so I got this gift for you and it was more than I wanted to spend. And so we kind of got to work that out now. I had to fess up or something else is going to have to give. And so it's important that you keep the lines of communication open, but I think the beauty of it is that if you're open to constructive criticism, if you are open to change, if you're open to listen and do something different, you never know what will happen. And if I hadn't been willing to listen to him, I wouldn't be here doing this today. And that's the bottom line. That's the truth.
I love that. It's so much more than finances. It's more about keeping communication open and transparency in every part of your marriage. And if you're hiding things about one thing, it's a slippery slope.
It is.
And so it's so important to have healthy relationships. And part of that is being able to share everything, even when it really, really hurts to talk about it.
Well, that's the thing too, is that I think if you can get this part of your life together with your spouse, you are setting yourself up for, a solid relationship. It's very vulnerable to talk about money. It's very vulnerable to talk about your mistakes or mishaps with money as well. And so if you are willing and able to share that with your spouse, I mean, you're giving them a piece of yourself that you're not giving to anybody else, because it creates an intimacy that nobody else can have with you. And so I love it when people realize the impact and the importance of that.
Yes, that's why the title of your book is just so perfect, Naked and Unashamed, because you do have to bear your secrets and your mistakes and kind of shake off the shame in order to have that communication with your significant others. And I know we'll talk about the book later, but maybe we can start to speak about, you come to this place where your husband is the one who motivates you to get rid of the debt, and you go through that journey. How does that turn into launching your own financial coaching business?
Well, it's interesting. It took us 5 years to get out of our $90,000 in debt. And so that's not a little bit of time. I mean, you got to stay committed. You got to really dot your I's and cross your T's. And along that journey, I started to realize that clearly I cannot be the only one. I cannot be the only one with this issue. And I started talking to a good friend of mine, and I said, do you think people would have me help them with their budgets too, now that I'm pretty good at it? I mean, we're nearly out of debt, and I'd love to be able to help somebody. And so she said, sure, absolutely. And her enthusiasm kind of fueled that for me. I talked to my pastor, and he said, yeah, let's do this. I got a couple people for you to sit down and talk to with right now. And so I did. And what's interesting is in that process, when I was working with them and I kind of went back and forth with him, he's the one who, this came out of his mouth. He said, you need to kind of tailor make this for them. Like, how do you tailor make it for them? And I was like, oh my gosh, I love that word. And that's actually how Tailor Made Budgets got the name, is because he wanted me to change some of the terminology in the budget for this particular family so that it felt like their own. And I thought, oh my gosh, I love it. That's it. And then I went to a business, plan class, and my best friend dragged me to a women in business boot camp. And I literally went kicking and screaming. I paid for it the day before and thought, there's not going to be anything awesome here. I don't even know why I'm wasting my Saturday on this. And I went, and I didn't even want to leave. It was 4:00. The thing was over, and I was waiting in line to talk to one of the speakers because she really impacted me. I loved the entire thing and thought, I'm going to start my business. And because this particular panelist started her business from the ground up, from zero, and I was really impressed by the fact that she had nothing and now she's got a business. And so I wanted to do the same. I wanted to help people and do it in this industry. And so that's how it was started. The interesting thing is that, like, about 2 months later after that, I went to church and my pastor said, you're scared, but do it anyway. Like, his sermon was, you're scared, do it anyway. And I was like, what? Why is he talking to me? And I don't know what the rest of the sermon was. I have no idea what else he said. But I know that was specifically for me, in terms of, you may not have all the answers. Your emotions cannot take over. Do it anyway. People are waiting on you to do this. And so that's when I started it. And I wasn't really sure where it was going to go, but that's how it began.
I love that. So how did you start your coaching business kind of on the side while you were still working as an engineer for a time? Or how long did it take for you to fully devote 100% of your time to the coaching business?
So yes, I did start it part-time for 6 months. It was nights and weekends. And that was back at a time where my husband was okay with me going to people's homes or meeting them at the library or what have you. They never came to our house, but that was short-lived. I did not go to people's houses for very long. But for 6 months, I did it on night and weekends. I sent a letter. It's the biggest thing that I did was I sent a letter to every person I knew with some business cards in there and said, hey, this is what I'm up to. This is what I'm doing and what I'm passionate about. And if you know of anyone who could, utilize the services of a coach, let me know. And so out of 100 people, I got 6 people to raise their hand and say, yes, I need you. And those were my first clients. My lunch breaks at work, I would go to networking meetings and meet people there. And then, one day, I don't think I was 100% financially ready, but when God moves, you just do. And so it wasn't what I would probably tell people to do now. But again, when God tells you to move, you do. And so we were completely out of debt and I was still working. I had reduced my hours, but God was like, it's time. I mean, I woke up in the middle of the night, like, you're being disobedient. You've got to leave this place. And I was like, what? Are you crazy? Oh my gosh. But I had to do it. And so I put in my letter of resignation and I left. At that point, I was trained by Dave Ramsey's team. And so I was on their website. And so I was technically full time, though the hours weren't full time. It took probably another year before I could say I was making money to help my household. And so, but you got to jump out and step out on faith when you know it's time. And so that's what I did.
I love it. And so, but the ability to not have that debt anymore, I'm sure gave you also some of the freedom to be able to make that decision. And, one of the big things in the financial independence community is side hustles and, bringing in extra income and making sure that you don't have debt. And these are the things that give you not just the freedom, but the ability to, increase your savings rate and all of that. So I think that there's so many good tips there that just in your story that can translate to others who are maybe thinking, what skill do I have? What can I do? What experience do I have that maybe I can put into some other sort of side business? So I'm sure lots of people appreciate that
Absolutely.
Part of your journey.
Absolutely. Yep. And I think that's one of the reasons that I tell my clients to pursue debt freedom is because it gives you the space to make that kind of a choice. Our debt was $1,000 a month when we were paying it. That's just the minimum payments on cars, credit cards, student loans. And so when you get rid of that, now it's like, okay, so I don't need to earn that money anymore to pay that. And so it gives you a sense of freedom to do something else, either with the work that you do or with the funds that you have. I love being able to see that open up for my clients now too.
So do some of your clients go down that route eventually? So I guess what I'm asking is, you found this thing that gave you so much inspiration and fulfilled you. Mm-hmm. You were giving your time on evenings and weekends, hours and hours a week. And you realized that you didn't need the $1,000 a month, but I'm sure that as an engineer, you made a decent salary. If you have a family with you that thinks, there's so much other stuff that I want to do, I'm cleaning up my act. When do you encourage them to make some of those types of moves, like opening their own side business or hustling?
You know what? I think that people, when they can do it at any point, where I get concerned is when people start a side hustle and they think it has to take $5,000 to start it. It doesn't. I want people to be creative in how they do it, but absolutely, if they're interested in doing it, I think start them day one. I mean, there's no reason to put it off. I tell people, I just talked to my husband about, I need $200. I needed a logo. I needed some business cards, I needed some paper, and I needed some stamps. And I sent out 100 letters. And I made thousands of dollars from that initial 6 coaching clients in order for me to, and it wasn't like $10,000, but it was enough to be considered a side hustle and to fund my ability to go get trained officially and, to start my website and those kinds of things. And so that was, instead of feeling like I've got to go out and do all this training and spend thousands of dollars there, I said, let me figure out how I can do this inexpensively and start immediately. And that's exactly what I did.
I bet that you see quite a bit when it comes to maybe couples that aren't on the same page. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How do you help families through some of the heated moments? And how do you help the family member that doesn't quite understand what the freedom of being debt-free or pursuing financial independence, how do you help the person who doesn't quite see it actually understand and see it, reach for it?
Right. So the first thing I start off with is shared goals. The biggest thing is to help the couple get on the same page and have some vision. So we want them to get excited. We want them to have something that they can both, focus on and go after. And so we start talking about the goals that each of them has. And my goals aren't exactly the same as my husband's. His goals aren't exactly the same as mine. But if we can find a common denominator, now we're talking. So he doesn't have the same business goals that I have. He doesn't have, honestly, the same savings goals as I have on, personal savings, things like that. And his corporate or, his goals for his career, things like that are different. And so I don't share those goals. I want him to succeed, but I don't have, the motivation that he would because he owns that goal. And so we had to come to a common denominator. What can we both agree upon? And we do this even with purchases. We just actually shared 20 years of marriage, which is awesome. Woo woo.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you. And one of the things that we had discussed as a gift to ourselves was to redo our bedroom, our master bedroom. And his thought on that was he wanted a new bed, a new mattress. My thought on that was I want it to be decorated. I want to walk in my bedroom and it's a master retreat. And so we had totally different viewpoints on what it is that we wanted. And what we've decided so that we can come to a shared goal was it doesn't have to happen on our exact anniversary, but it is a goal that we will both get what we want. It's just going to take a little bit more time. It's just going to probably, instead of it being right now, it's going to probably take 6 months because we both want it. So we've been willing to say our 20-year anniversary gift to ourselves may happen when it's 20.5 years, and that's okay because we both get what we want. So we had to find a common denominator because if we warred against each other, neither one of us is going to be satisfied. And honestly, to compromise, him getting a lesser mattress, even though we both sleep on it, or me saying, oh, I'm only going to spend $1,000 when I know decorating is going to cost twice that. You know what I mean? Like that isn't actually giving us exactly what we want. And to get what we want might mean just more time. And that's what we've chosen to do. And so a shared goal is really important for couples, even if it's something small. And so for one of the couples that I worked with, she wanted to switch the order in how they paid off the debt. It just was more important for her to do it that way. And so I made that a priority. She and her husband have paid off thousands of dollars in debt. When we got down to the bottom line at the very end, we kind of made some adjustments so that emotionally that thing felt good for the both of them. And that's okay. It's a compromise or it's a shift in how you do it so that the goal is something that they can both be excited about. And so, so you have to be considerate of that kind of stuff and think through what is best for each person and how you can make that happen. So that's how I get buy-in. I think it's really important to get buy-in. And I introduced the team couple concept in my book. A team couple is, a couple who has shared goals and they're going in the same direction. They may not always see eye to eye, but they are working together as a team to go somewhere. And so typically that's financial independence, however they deem to, define that. But it's whatever it looks like and is important to them. And so they're going in the same direction. So I think shared goals are the key to getting people on the same page.
What about, Timika and I are in a bunch of groups together, and one of the hardest questions that I think that we see is when there are couples that are just completely miles apart as far as what their goals are. What do you suggest for the partner or the spouse who just simply can't get their significant other on board with the plan? Do you have any advice or suggestions or offerings for how they can maybe minimize that sort of lack of cooperation?
Well, and I think one of the biggest things is I think we need to understand why, like in what areas are they not cooperating. So for instance, if one spouse is like, I really want to get out of debt, and the other one's like, I really don't care, and they're still using credit cards, that's a big disparity, right? Because if you're still using credit cards, then you are negating all of the work anyone else is trying to do, trying to get the debt to go down. But if they're like, I don't feel like being involved in the finances, I'm not interested, and the other spouse is much better suited to do it and they enjoy it and it comes natural to them, I don't have a problem with someone leading as long as the other spouse isn't holding them back. And from kind of moving the family forward. I think that happens a lot, actually, where there's one person who's more suited and who's more interested and into the details than the other one. I just don't want them to, again, negate the progress that is being made. But I think it does come down to why they aren't on board. And so these are some questions to ask. What is your hesitation? Why aren't you interested in this? I'll be honest, and I'm going to make a very harsh statement here, that a lot of the times in this area of finance, people haven't grown up. We haven't matured, and we haven't decided to live within our means. And so if we're living outside our means and it's affecting the household, we've got to put our big girl pants on, big boy pants on, and be an adult. We had literally, yesterday I was out at the amusement park and I saw someone t-shirt that said, "Can't adult today." I mean, honestly, in finances, you can't wear that t-shirt, Right. And so
you're not part of the club.
You cannot do that. So, I'm delicate where it comes to, I understand that there are people who just don't want to participate in that. But if they're holding the family back, we've got to go deeper. The whole first section of my book is all about your money past. And I think that if we can get to the heart of where this roadblock is coming into play, what happened in the past, what are some conversations that need to be had, what's missing here, what is that missing link, that I think is the more appropriate place to start, because the numbers might be, really the thing that pushes someone over to the edge to just say no. You might need to just have a conversation about, what was your upbringing? How did you used to do things? What is the concern with, giving up some of this independence? That kind of stuff before you really get into the detailed numbers.
What I know about you is that you have 2 daughters. One of them just left for college, right?
Yes.
So exciting. And I can't even, it just makes my heart hurt when I think about any of my kids leaving you. So
I know. Yes. Yes.
So what sort of knowledge do you think that it's imperative to impart to your children as they're growing about finances and budgeting?
I think it's important to share as much as you can and feel comfortable with. We've had conversations with our girls, obviously when the time was right. I mean, I'm not going to talk to a 5-year-old about a mortgage. But we've always discussed money matters. So little things, so that it's an easy conversation. I don't want it to one day, girl, you got to do this, this, and this. Like, just throw it all at her at one time. But things like, don't leave the refrigerator open. That's money. Let me tell you about the electric bill, right? Or how much do you think it costs for our family to have dinner? And one exercise I had my girls do a couple of years back was to take the dining out money, so the dollar amount, and break it up and have them see how far it can go. If you want to go to Chick-fil-A, if you want to go here, you want to go there, how much can you realistically do? And what's interesting is they started to see that it didn't go as far as they thought. And my youngest daughter said, "Oh, I just want a milkshake from Chick-fil-A. I don't want anything else," And they just started seeing what they could really do in a 2-week period with the money that we have for dining out, so that they got everybody, all 4 of us got what we wanted. And so that was an interesting exercise. But, as they're gotten older, so around the age of 15, certainly by 16, my oldest had a checking account that she learned to manage. And when she was driving, she got a job, and I was able to help her. I put a certain dollar amount in her account, and that is all I put in there. She was working so she could do the rest. And she had to manage her gas money and her dining out money and, even some of her clothing money. And so we gave her that responsibility before she left our house. She paid half for her car. We paid the other half for her car. And so, we just made it clear that, at a certain age, you're going to take on some responsibility. And now this last year or two with her, going through the college process and admissions and things like that, we started talking big numbers, the student loan numbers, the tuition and room and board numbers, and the difference in schools. She was looking at a private school that literally was twice as much as the school she decided to attend. And when she started to see the numbers for what they really were, even with her scholarship she got from that school, she realized that she was going to have to take out student loans, because we've saved money, but we had not saved $100,000 for, college tuition. And so she did not want loans. And now in retrospect, she loves her school. She's really glad that she made this choice, in addition to the fact that financially speaking, it's more beneficial. But it was a hard road. And my husband and I kind of had to stick to our guns on, we're not taking out any loans for you. We don't want you to take out any loans, but here's what we have. Here is the difference. And if you make a different choice, you're going to take that out yourself. We're not doing that. And so she made the choice that made sense financially. And so I think age appropriate conversations, but also just being honest about where you are and your stake in this. I think a lot of parents want to give the college education to their kids. And that is a very, very expensive thing to offer, when I think that college is a privilege. It is not a right. I want to offer a roof over your head, clothes on your back, food on the table, things like that, healthcare for you. But I do not have to pay for you to go to college. Like, honestly, you're 18. There are ways to figure this out. And so that distinction is difficult for parents to swallow. And a lot of them don't. A lot of them just pay it. And the problem that I see is that there are people who are in their 60s who are paying student loans for their kids, and they can't afford it. They're supposed to be retired, but they're still working because they have student loans that they took out for their kids. And that is really a hard place to be. So yeah, I think age appropriate conversations, and then giving them responsibilities when they're ready for it. And I think that will help them to not be so blindsided when they do go off on their own.
I absolutely agree with that, and your approach to how you targeted that with your daughter, and making sure she understood that look, we can't go into debt for you to send you to college.
Right.
When did you start having those conversations with her? Well, let me back up. How did you and your husband decide what amount you two were going to put away for your girls for college? Have you guys had that conversation all along, or was that something that you decided on later, that this is how much of our budget we're going to commit to future college expenses, that sort of thing?
We didn't start planning for college until we were out of debt. And honestly, it probably took us a couple of years after that. And so we honestly originally, it wasn't an end goal dollar amount. For us, it was just, this is what our budget can afford and what we can consistently commit to on a monthly basis. When we moved to Indiana, so I highly recommend people look at their state-specific plans for saving for college education, because when we moved to Indiana, we doubled what we were saving for college, because they give a state credit on your taxes. And so we were like, oh, well, I want the whole credit. And so we wanted to get the entire amount. So we began to save more when we moved here. So it was the plan specific to the state that made the difference there. Plus, of course, she was getting closer, the kids are getting older. So, we kind of had to kick it into gear. But we didn't actually have, when we first started, we didn't have a dollar amount we wanted to achieve. We were just thinking what we could do. And then we said, if, once we got closer, we started saying, well, yeah, we kind of do need a dollar amount. And so then it made sense to adjust. So I think we changed our dollar amount 2 or 3 times over the course of maybe 15 years. Or not even, maybe it was 13 years. And so I think that knowing what you can afford is the first place to start. But knowing the cost of college is really important. The school she decided to attend is $20,000 a year, tuition and room and board included. So that's 80 grand in today's dollars right now. So for and that's in state. So, and, that's about right. I mean, so if we're looking at trying to pay for college, these numbers make sense. Like, this is real talk. So if you're talking out of state or private, you're looking at way more than that, double, double. So sadly, that's how it is. And so we were never going to save $200,000 for both of our girls to go to school. That was not in the cards. We always wanted them to have some kind of stake in the game. And so even if it meant them paying half of it somehow with tuition or with scholarships or, them working, that kind of thing, we wanted them to pay for some of it because that is actually what we did. My husband had to work 30 hours while he was in college to go to school, to stay in school. And, I was a resident advisor. So my room and board for 3 years was taken care of. And so that was how I helped. And so those are the kinds of things that you look creatively at it, but I wanted my kids to have a stake in the game.
With by the way, such a wonderful big lesson in lifestyle inflation and how to resist it and make a better decision when you talk about these big, huge price tags. And possibly when she got the car, I don't know if she had to choose something that she could pay the half for. And if she wanted something better or more expensive at that time too. How old is your youngest daughter, and have you adjusted anything for when she's going to college?
My youngest is 14, and I haven't quite adjusted anything yet, although the conversations are so much easier now. I mean, she wants to check an account early because she knows for her, the difference is she always has to ask me to buy something online. So the world is changing to where a debit card for kids it's not a necessity, but teaching them how to use it early on makes life a little bit easier all around. And so she wants a checking account sooner than my oldest did. And so the fact that she's asking is awesome. For her, she already knows that, the whole car game is something that she's got to start thinking about, because my oldest really only saved her money for about a year. And so my youngest now has 2 years. And she's been saving. So she's a little bit ahead of the game anyway, because she's already been saving for her car. And so, I'll be honest, I think that the second one, because she's heard these conversations, she sat in the car when we were talking to my oldest about it. And so that part is easier. Where it concerns college, I'm telling my youngest to duplicate what my oldest did. Let's go get these scholarships and that kind of thing. So we're going to do some of the same kinds of activities that helped my oldest get what today, believe it or not, is a full ride for her college education. We are currently only having to pay right now her books. So that's fantastic.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's so great.
Yes.
So did she take any community college credits, any CLEP tests, or is this all through applying for scholarships?
It is applying through scholarships. There's specific programs, state-specific programs, but also programs at the university that she took part in. So she was a summer school student because one of the scholarship required that. And so she gave up her summer, but that means that she is in a program that if she keeps her grades up, she will have money for school from that. And so, she didn't want to give up her summer. And I don't think she went kicking and screaming, but let's just say a year ago, she thought we were crazy when we found out about this. And she was very reluctant. And when she
How did you find this?
You know what? Talking to people. I was talking to people. I talked to people whose children had already been to college. And I followed up on all of the contacts that they gave me. And I literally did exactly what they told me to do. And I think, and I have friends, and they know I'm in the financial arena. I have friends who I have shared this same information with who have not done anything with it. So I think the biggest thing that you can do with college is talk to other families whose students are in college in your state and see what they have done to get scholarships. That is humongous. And do what they did. Do exactly what they did.
It's all in the follow-up.
It
all
is.
in the follow-up.
Yep.
Oh, that's some great tip. Great practical.
Well, and honestly, the other thing that we did, now this is a small thing, but big in the payoff, is my daughter is staying in a dorm that has no air conditioning. So we're not in Arizona and we're not in Texas. She's going to be hot for a few weeks, right? But come September, it'll be fine. But that saved us $1,400 per semester. And so that would have changed the game. Like, we would have been coming out of pocket more, right? Because now that goes above and beyond the scholarship money that she got. So that was a shift. That was a conscious choice. And we bought her a really good fan for $70.
Oh boy.
So, I mean, it's Indiana. That's a choice that we could make. And then the other thing is we're talking to her already about becoming a resident advisor so that she can get, free room and board. And so I don't think she can do that next year, but the year after that, she certainly can. And that'll make a big difference as well. So I think people have to, be willing to think outside the box, and it's okay, to consider things differently. We changed her meal plan, and so there are lots of smaller ways that you can make this a little bit more affordable.
Nice.
Yes, actually, now that you mention it, I think when I went to college, they automatically put you on the unlimited plan for your meal plan.
Yeah, we changed that. Mm-hmm.
So I think I changed that too and went down to the limited meals. Maybe I counted it out and picked something that was more, less meals, but more affordable. And you still get all of the food when you go in.
Yes. And the thing is, I think it worked for us too. My daughter's vegetarian. And so she can do some things differently herself. Like, she'll probably have to anyway, because she won't be able to eat some of the stuff, or she won't want to. So a lower plan for her was beneficial. And, then she got some dining dollars so she can eat elsewhere. So she has some more options versus being limited to just what they serve in the dining halls.
I wanted to make sure I touched on two things before we get into our final questions.
Sure.
The first one is, who is the ideal person that might want to consider getting a financial coach?
Yeah. So if this is a person or a family, a couple who has a good amount of debt. So we're saying about $50,000, $60,000 in debt on average. Lots of people have more than that, but they make good money. So they're making $150,000 a year, but they haven't paid attention to their money. They, might have somebody who's mowing their lawn. They've got a couple of kids. They are professionals in their careers and they're busy. But the biggest thing is that they're coachable. And the reason I mentioned even having a landscaper, or they take their kids to childcare or what have you, is because these are people who understand the value of a service of an outside person. And so that makes them a little bit, I just would say, more coachable. They're a person who's open to the input of someone else, or open to handing something off for someone else to do, because they're busy. They've got a lot on their plate. And so, I think the biggest thing is, if I have a conversation with someone and they are unwilling to change, that's a red flag for me. So I've worked with single moms who make less than, $100,000, of course. I've worked with CEOs of companies who make multiples of $100,000. And as long as you are coachable, fantastic, I can work with you. If you are resistant to change, if you want to continue to do the same thing over and over again and get a different result, I am not the person for you.
Right. And you can't fix problems. That you can give them tools, but they still got to use them.
That's exactly right.
And then the last thing that I wanted to touch on is that you wrote this Really awesome book, Naked and Unashamed. What prompted you to write the book, and who is the book for? What can they expect to learn from the book?
So I have been wanting to write a book for several years. I didn't get the gumption to do it until I actually found the right coach to help me. So I hired a writing coach who helped me bring this concept to life. And in my talking with her, we defined who the audience was. And so half of my clientele are couples and half are single women for the most part. And so I have every so often, I get one single man. It's like every year I get just one or two single men to work with. But for the most part, my business is made up of couples and single women. And so I wanted to give them something if they weren't ready for coaching, if they are looking to understand who Ericka is, if I'm doing an event and, people want to know what the next step is, they can buy my book. And so I just wanted to have that extra added credibility statement, but also to be able to speak into the life of someone who may not become a client, or it'll push them over the edge to become a client. And so that's why I wrote the book. The book is divided into 3 sections. One is your money past, the second is your money present, and then the third is your money future. And so the first section has nothing to do with the numbers, but it's all about understanding who you are financially speaking, and how your past, your childhood, your adulthood, these past experiences have shaped who you are today financially. And then the middle section is all about the reality check and the numbers and getting clear on where you are in terms of your finances. And I think it's the hardest section, which is why it's in the middle of all the good stuff. But it forces you to look in the mirror and see your reality. And then your money future is about dreaming again and thinking about what do you want to see tomorrow and what's important to you down the line, and just enjoying the freedom and vision for what you want to see later on in life. And so I wanted it to be more than just about the numbers, and I wanted to be inspiring, and I wanted it also to have stories. And so it's full of client stories, my stories, real life happening, and giving people an opportunity to identify themselves within the book so that they can see that it's possible for them to experience that freedom as well.
Awesome. I think it's a really awesome resource for people, and we'll make sure that how people can find you and get a hold of that book in our show notes. We are at the end of our show, and so we just have a couple closeout questions that we ask of all of our guests. And so the first one is, what was one lesson that you learned about money or finances, good or bad, growing up, that you have carried over into your financial journey?
One of the biggest money lessons that I learned was that my granddaddy always had cash on hand. And I looked back at that experience thinking, you know what, he looked like he looked wealthy to me, because he paid cash for my mother's car. And this was and I actually remember it was a $6,000 vehicle. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe Grandpa has that much money. I thought he was rich. And so cash equated to rich for me, equated to wealth for me. And I still think that the use of cash and not credit is what will equate to wealth. So I've shifted that mindset a little bit, but the experience of my grandfather started it. And now I've adapted it to be my own. And I feel like the cash is what keeps you out of the debt that will rob you of your future. So that was probably the one good money lesson that I've learned.
I like that. And what is one of your favorite life hacks that you could share with other parents?
That's oh gosh, that's kind of hard. With parents, I think, I don't know if it's a life hack, but I will reiterate what I said before about college education and thinking outside the box. I think that we spend money on our kids for 18 years. And it is very possible that college can be the same amount of money that you spend on those kids for 18 years. And so there's a lot of bang for your buck if you can think outside the box on college. If your student isn't ready necessarily for a major university, It is so much less expensive to do a community college for a couple of years doing prereqs and figuring out what they want to do. Finding scholarships, having them work during the summer and have some buy-in for their tuition. But I think the biggest area to have any kind of life hacks is in college. One of the areas that I've told young parents is to share a nanny. Like, that's a big life hack, I think, at the younger ages is for people to find, instead of paying the out-of-pocket, astronomical costs for childcare, find a nanny and share that person with someone.
I think that is a really great, really great tip because, along with housing costs and education costs, I think childcare is up there on the list of one of the bigger ticket items that we share as parents. And like, if you can just cut down on those bigger ticket items, you get so much bang for your buck.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a client who just did it, and she's saving $400 a month by doing that. She literally just last week found someone and started working with them. And so it's huge. It can be a big, and it saves time. It can save gas money. There's a lot more to it. I mean, this person's now doing her laundry, and so that's freeing her up too in that area. So that's fantastic.
$400 a month is huge. That's almost funding an IRA account, which is, It's so huge, so huge. Well, then the final question that we have, Ericka, is what is the best way for our listeners to find you?
Yes, so you can find me on tailormadebudgets.com. That's my website. And there's a link on there. There's two links. One is if you want to have a 30-minute conversation with me, I do those free of charge, and you can have a moment to talk about what your best next step should be in your finances. And then there's also a download. It's called Have Your Cake and Eat It Too. And it's the 4 steps to debt freedom. And so a lot of people want to understand how they can continue to live a decent lifestyle while getting out of debt. And that ebook is something that I've offered to people who sign up for my newsletter and are able to get some good tips there as well. So tailormadebudgets.com is the best way. And then also you can email me straight at Ericka@tailormadebudgets.com, and you've got to say ERICKA at tailormadebudgets.com.
Oh gosh. Well, thank you again so much, Ericka, for coming on today. There's just so much to unpack in this episode. I'm going to have to listen to it, I'm sure, at least a couple more times to get all that information. Just really good, practical knowledge. I love it. And again, just thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. I had a blast.
Before we close out the show, we have some exciting news. We are opening up registration for a free 4-week savings bootcamp. This will be a private Facebook group where Wendy and I will be coaching you to get you motivated to save more and spend less. You can sign up by sending us a Facebook message or contacting us via our website contact page. Space is limited, so please sign up today. Also, we have a winner for our book giveaway. B. Marie says, loved the relaxed, friendly conversation. The guidance is accessible without being preachy or prescriptive. The episode helped spark a conversation about allowance pay for chores and grades between me and my hubs, a topic I'd never discussed before. Bravo, ladies. Well done. Thank you, B. Marie. And if you'd like a chance to win our favorite read, which is currently Kids' Money Habits by Amy Coit, please leave us a review and email us at info@houseoffi.com once you've done so.
Well, House of Fi family, that brings this episode to a close. We appreciate you listening. And if you've enjoyed the show, please leave us a review on iTunes. To show our appreciation, for every 5 reviews we receive, we will reward that listener with one of our favorite reads. And you can find out what that is in our show notes. Don't forget to also send us an email with your review screen name so that we can track who has left a review. Our hope for this show is that we have both inspired you and provided you with practical tools to aid you in your journey to financial independence. We welcome your feedback, and you can do that in one of 3 ways. You can message us on our website, houseoffi.com, through the contact page. You can also leave a voice message there. The final way is that you can send us an email at info@houseoffi.com. We read every message. Once again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you back here next week.